If a coalition government comes to power in Canada in the next election, as it did in the UK, Michael Ignatieff, leader of the Liberal Party, may well be the next Prime Minister of Canada. Michael Ignatieff wrote in his book, The Rights Revolution, "I want to alert readers that I am a Martian outsider. Martians can never hope to grasp the tacit knowledge of real human beings. On the other hand, they sometimes see things real human beings fail to notice." ExopoliticsTV caught up with Michael and his wife Zsuzsanna at a political rally at a community center in Vancouver, BC. You can watch the action and listen to ExopoliticsTV correspondent Susan Gordon interview Alfred Lambremont Webre on the state of extraterrestrials and democracy in Canada. I want to alert readers that I am a Martian outsider is what Michael Ignatieff can leave us with.
On Saturday, August 21st, 2010, ExopoliticsTV ventured out to a rally in Vancouver, BC for Prime Minister-in-waiting, Liberal candidate Michael Ignatieff. Alfred brought a copy of his book to the event, generating considerable interest as some Ignatieff supporters recognized him and others struck up a conversation, fascinated by the subject of exopolitics. We watched as excitement built for the brilliant candidate, a man with 11 honorary degrees to his credit, made his entrance, and we wondered if he could be the official who would continue the effort to have public hearings in the Parliament of Canada on the extraterrestrial presence. Alfred, do you think if a coalition government came to power in Canada in the next election, that someone like Michael Ignatieff could jumpstart an extraterrestrial disclosure process?
Well, that's a very interesting question, and I think that a coalition government just might be the vehicle. We almost had one here in Canada during a recent election, and the coalition government would have gone forward, except in my judgment, for some faulty rulings on behalf of by the then Governor General, and since then we have the precedent, of course, of the coalition government in the UK, and so a coalition government could go forward here among the opposition the parties that are now in opposition against, after the next election, assuming that none of the current opposition parties get a majority vote. I believe that there's something in Michael Ignatieff's makeup, judging from my experience, where he might be open to that. Certainly, we had a very interesting experience at the community center, and a lot of receptivity, unusual receptivity, I would say, to the general backstory of exopolitics, which is, in its most general definition, the study of relations among intelligent civilizations in the multiverse. And he and his wife being an intellectual team, his wife, with whom I got to speak briefly, seemed to be very interested. She reviewed part of the book, and when I mentioned that a former Deputy Prime Minister of Canada, she actually read that part of it. Paul Hellyer had written an introduction to the book, which he had. It's quite sincere. He quoted part of the introduction at a public event at the University of Toronto. I think that gave her some additional interest. And I think that in future years, politicians in Canada are going to be less reluctant to face this issue as has been our experience since the year 2005, when we've been at this process in earnest here.
And starting in 2005, there was an effort to have public hearings in the Parliament of Canada on the extraterrestrial presence. Those hearings have not happened. Why not? And might they happen in the future? You mentioned some faulty rulings by the Governor General. Perhaps you could elaborate.
Well, actually, the Governor General was, in kind of a backstory way, involved in part of our process of attempting to get extraterrestrial disclosure, and was not unfavorably disposed. My reference to the Governor General was that I think that she made inappropriate rulings to the issue of a coalition, the appropriateness of a coalition government in Canada, and to the issues of proroguing Parliament, disbanding Parliament, which were ancillary to the coalition government issues. But since 2005, a number of non-governmental organizations here in Canada, Exopolitics Toronto, the Institute for Cooperation in Space, Paul Hellyer, the Disclosure Project, we were all working together toward a common objective to get the Canadian government and the Canadian Parliament to hold some sort of public accountable process to deal with the extraterrestrial presence, for which there is ample evidence. I mean, there's ample UFO evidence, and you can judge that under what they call the, quote, extraterrestrial hypothesis. And as soon as you do that, and with the extraterrestrial hypothesis, that's the term that's in vogue now, for saying that some UFOs are extraterrestrial as opposed to black budget craft. And there are many, many black budget craft which can be quite large and quite awesome. The history since 2005, I mean, we've put in a tremendous amount of effort at the citizen level, both in the Canadian Senate and in the House of Commons, particularly in the Canadian Senate at various committees. And even Paul Hellyer went and met with some of the committee members using his good offices. And essentially he was rebuffed by senior committee people who passed the buck, saying that, oh, there's nothing Canada can do. We're just a lightweight player. Everything is down in the States. Whereas that's a false argument. In international affairs, look what Grenada did. Grenada in 1978, as a small Caribbean nation, actually brought a resolution to the United Nations General Assembly, which was passed there, to set up a United Nations department to study extraterrestrial life. Now, because the United States and the kind of the NATO powers have fought it tooth and nail, that resolution has never been implemented. But to accept the excuse by the senators, the Canadian senators, that they were not going to act because all of these matters are in the hands of the United States and they're just small fish, that's a total abrogation of Canadian sovereignty, and in fact of Canada's role in the world as sort of an international, a nation that stood for fair play at the international level. Now, ever since we've had Prime Minister Harper, who seems to play for certain vested interests at the international level that belong to the Bilderberg Club, well, that are the forces, part of the forces behind the extraterrestrial cover-up. Well, extraterrestrial disclosure in Canada has been exceedingly difficult. But I think times are changing. Canada will be pulling out of Afghanistan in 2011, and there's a great deal of discontent with Harper. I think what occurred at the G20, when a thoroughly undemocratic event took place with the imposition of $1 billion